We actually went to Iceland in 2022, and I'm finally getting around to doing the behind the scenes, and that just says like how busy we've been since then. And I finally got some time to put it together, so here we are.
That's good. You still haven't said the thing that I said to say.
What was that?
Like, do you forget the minute I say?
Yeah, what did I say?
Right. Wildlife filmmaking.
Yeah.
Weddings, coming back.
Okay.
I decided to combine the two.
All right.
And this is where Iceland was born.
So the behind the scenes is something I've been planning to do for a while and just haven't got round to until nearly 3 years later, almost. The behind the scenes has been a long time coming. So during lockdown, the wedding industry was shut down, and to be honest, I was a little bit bored. Because I had a little bit more time, I wanted to get some films into film festivals just to see how I'd do. So I dipped my toes in some films that weren't necessarily wedding related, just testing out different types of storytelling. I made a lot of films just messing about with the kids when we wasn't allowed to leave the house. Inspired by Captain Tom, me and my son Dexter embarked on an ambition to climb 10 mountains that equalled the height of Mount Everest. I went to Scotland with my dog and we did West Highland Way, and I made a film on that did really well at film festivals. I also put a shout out into a local fell running group just to see if anyone had any extraordinary stories that I could make a film of. And a lady called Angela got in touch. She was doing a big challenge up in the Lake District. Yeah, I learned a lot on that one. I also made a film about one of my good friends, Chelsea Shoesmith, who had a really extraordinary story about coming back from grief. The whole thing was very inspiring. There was a big mix of films that I dipped my toes in.
And on his nice warm bed with a big bond of affection.
Before getting into the wedding industry, I always wanted to be a wildlife filmmaker. Didn't happen, had a family and got into weddings. Shooting in the outdoors and shooting in the wild is something that I really love to do. Because I was making all of these different types of films, I really wanted to combine the two and make something for YSD. We hadn't really posted anything for a while, so I wanted to come back with a bang, but I wanted to come back with something completely different. So I came up with the idea of doing kind of a styled shoot. We don't really have a marketing budget. Well, we have a marketing budget, right? I don't know. Do we have a marketing budget? Have we got a marketing budget? Right, so...
We don't have any form of budget.
We haven't got a budget. So...
We just wing it and it seems to work.
Yeah. Well, I decided that I was going to pitch the idea of doing some kind of film. Whenever I'm describing anything, by the way, just understand that I have ADHD and the story is going to be like this, okay? So I apologise. Why did we go to Iceland? Why do it, you know? Essentially, a styled shoot isn't really respected within the industry. It's not something that people would actively promote. A lot of people like the authentic look of a wedding and that's the way of promoting it, which I wholeheartedly agree with. But that wasn't the reason why we decided to go to Iceland. The way that we shoot is we don't really direct anything on the day. We shoot the day exactly how it happens, fly in the wall documentary style. And we don't really direct we don't direct a bride and groom or anything like that. But there are times when you might need that. You know, you might have a bride and groom that aren't as natural, and you need to bring that sort of directional style into it. It doesn't really explain why Iceland itself is beautiful, like the locations are amazing, and it's something that we could have really, I wanted to go to Iceland, basically. The other thing was the experience of running a team, because we do quite a lot of corporate work as well as wedding. We need the experience of running a team and managing the expectations and handling so many different personalities with the common goal of creating a film. Before we did anything else, we had to come up with the reasons why it would be worth it to go and do something like this. So the reasons why is obviously to gain the skills that I've spoken about, but also we could have done a short film, we could have done a corporate video, we could have, there's so many angles that we could have gone with, but I thought a good way of doing it, because I work in the wedding industry, would be to sort of stick to what I know, gather a team within the wedding industry, use to film for YSD and with the promotion of YSD. And Iceland is, we could have done it in Scotland, we could have done it anywhere, but I just wanted to go to Iceland, you know. I wanted to go and make something over there. The scenery is epic, it's volcanic, ancient. Like, when you think of Iceland, you think Vikings, you think Black Sands Beach, waterfalls. I've been there before a couple of times, and the scenery was, yeah, special. But also, what I really wanted to do was to make this behind the scenes film with the intention of going and doing some workshops in the future, somewhere in the world, based on elopements, based on directing, based on working in challenging environments. Like, they're all things that, off the back of the shoot, I wanted to achieve. There was a lot of things to consider. First of all, it was going to be expensive. But even before that, I looked at Iceland and I was already imagining the kind of places where we could go, the shots that we could do, what we could get the bride and groom to do. And the ideas just ran away. Instantly, I was like, I need to go to this place. I had to, obviously, with being a small business, we can't just blow the entire marketing budget on a trip. It had to be feasible. We had to make it work. We had to see whether it was viable for the business. Iceland was going to be expensive already, so we had to work out the travel day, the recce day, to decide how many shoot days we were going to have, and also compensate for how much time everyone was going to have to give up to come and do this. The plan was exciting. We've not done anything like this before, and to plan the backgrounds that we wanted to shoot, the locations that we wanted to go to, with the dresses that we wanted to use and the models, we had no idea what the dresses were going to look like at this point. We had no idea what the models were going to look like. We had an idea, and it was talking through them ideas to try and come up with a vision of what we wanted. We wanted like a really earthy look. We wanted a natural look. We wanted like beautiful backgrounds, waterfalls. We wanted rivers, we wanted mountains, we wanted snow-capped mountains, we wanted like rough seas, rain. Like, I wanted it to be dramatic. So then we had to consider the shoot days, the travel days, where were the people coming from, the flight times, getting into Reykjavik. Then wherever we was going to stay, we had to be within a certain amount of time of the locations that we had to go to. We had to manage the time. So that was another consideration that we had to make. Obviously, I had to speak to Carleen, my wife, about the options that we had, and we realised that it was going to cost, thousands of pounds. And not only that, we also had to consider it couldn't just be me taking a bride and groom. First of all, we had to get a bride and groom. We had to get some models who were willing to do it. We had to have someone to make the dresses, the suits. We had to have makeup, a photographer. It made sense to bring a photographer on board because it would be excellent content for them. For me, the film was never the most important part of it. The most important part was making the behind the scenes. What I wanted to do is not only go and shoot something over there, but also get the experience of managing people, but also having the experience of directing. Like this we were going to be finding two models that had never worked together before, and we were going to try and make it look like they was in love, After researching some of the locations that we could have gone to, thinking about a bride and groom, thinking about the kind of story that we could put together to make something, it was going to be expensive. It was too expensive for us to be thinking about taking a team abroad and creating something like this. So I had to have a think of who would want to invest in something like this alongside us. And a photographer was the obvious choice. The photographer could also gain some quality content from something like this. Touched on just how expensive the whole trip was going to be, and it made sense to bring somebody else on board that could also benefit 50% from it, but also pay half of the money towards it. It was going to be expensive taking a lot of people out to Iceland. It made sense to bring someone on board and go halves. There was a networking event organised by Andy Murphy where me and Paul, we had a bit of a drink, and we discussed what we could do together.
I wouldn't say what we could do because that sounds creepy.
Down it! Down it!
Good good friend of mine, Paul Williams.
Down it right now! For fuck's sake, down it! I know it's not tequila! Down it!
I rang Paul, told him what my idea was, what we were going to be doing, the locations, how we would have full control, how it would be directing. To be honest, around that time, just after COVID, we were all a bit bored. We were all a bit like dying to get back to work and make something. So if I ask now, the answer might be different. If I asked any of these people now, it might be different because we're busy again. Around that time, we wasn't. It was a weird time because we were all so quiet and we hadn't made anything in ages. Paul didn't really need persuading because why would he? It's a shoot in Iceland, a bride and groom, quality content. There's problems with bringing somebody else in on it because I'd ran away with all my ideas. I'd ran away with all these epic locations that I wanted to do and the kind of ideas that I had where it was video heavy. And now suddenly I had to sort of sacrifice 50% of what I wanted to do and hand it back to a photographer. Now, a photographer and videographer's jobs are completely different. On a wedding day, a photographer will take the bride and groom out for portrait shots and we will piggyback off the back of whatever they're doing. So it kind of took some of the directing away from me with Paul coming on board because he would then be directing the bride and groom and it would kind of transpire a little bit into how we work on a wedding day. So I was losing a little bit of the direction that I wanted to do on the job. The good thing about working with Paul is he was willing to listen to what I wanted and what we wanted out of the shoot. It wasn't difficult like that. You know, whenever you go 50% with anyone, whenever you're going with a business partner, whenever you get a friend to get involved in something that is for financial gain or for work purposes, it can sometimes go wrong. You have difference of opinions, you have different goals. But fortunately, in the lead up to the shoot, we both compromised on places where we wanted to go, and it was great having Paul on board. A few weeks before going out to Iceland, me and Paul went up to the Lake District on a pre-bonding experience, really. I broke him. See you later, mate. We needed a thread because it wasn't going to be an authentic wedding. I needed a thread, something that was going to tie the video together, something that would go from the start to the finish. Me and Carleen, we spoke for weeks about what we could do because we wasn't going to have an authentic ceremony and we didn't want to just do it to any old audio. That's where the idea of a poem came in. We'd done a poem for Rufio's West Highland Way Adventure that did really well at film festivals. And we had a poem wrote specifically for that. Carleen had an idea of writing a poem and calling it She Reminds Me of Iceland. And that's where the name of the film comes from. So Carleen found 3 different poems and selected things that she liked from each part of them and have adapted it to work for the film. I wanted to use someone in Iceland to do the voiceover, or someone Icelandic. But instead of that, I thought, I'm going to go over to Sweden, I'm going to see my granddad, and I'm going to try and get him to do it. And that's what we did.
Ja, kanske i och för sig svarta hav med snötäcken och lite grann om det svarta hav.
We had to adapt some of the wording because the translation from English to Swedish didn't really work.
Snötäckta svarta hav.
We did it in English and Swedish because I really wanted to use the audio and play with it and mix it together.
Land betyder inte.
In the end, we had this fantastic voiceover, even before we went out to Iceland. 3, 2, 1.
Påminner mig om Island. Kall och vacker. Ja, ett fjärran land betyder inget för mig. Båda djup av eld som den mäktiga vulkanen. Mystiska kristallvatten och för evigt forsande vattenfall. Av dess dagsljus uppstår rosa skimmer och påminner mig om Island.
See, I'd looked at loads of locations. There was so many places that I wanted to go, but Iceland's quite vast. So we had to think first and foremost about how feasible these places were. Iceland in May, Iceland at any month of the year, the weather is very, very unpredictable. And for me, I wanted dark, gloomy, rainy, windy weather.
No, it's just straight down, is it not?
If the weather was going to be like that, and there was a good chance that it was going to be, team morale was obviously something that we needed to look into. So whatever location that we went to, it had to have either facilities that we could use or not far from the vehicle, within a few minutes walk, so we wasn't travelling too far. We had to look more around Reykjavik because that was originally where we was going to stay. We had Black Sand Beach, obvious choice. There was the plane crash site, there was the various waterfalls, Skogafoss waterfall and Selangjafoss, however you say it, Selangjafoss, anyway, waterfall. All the locations that we'd scouted was within a few minutes walk from a car or had facilities there. One of the first places that I'd looked at was a place called Thorsmork, and I'd got in contact with, it was a photographer or videographer, and they'd had this epic shot over Thorsmork with a bride and groom, and I got in touch and they said, it's an amazing place, but you have to go through rivers to get there, and you then had to hike for 4 hours to get to this spot. And I thought, nah, it's too, I mean, we could have got some beautiful shots along the way, but that's an 8-hour round trip, you know, that's too much too. And also, the other thing about Thorsmork, we got in contact with the car hire company and asked how it works with that, and they said they wouldn't insure us. So that was the end of Thorsmork. There was a lot of locations that I came across and that was like that, where it wasn't that easy to get to. And also, Iceland's a touristy place. You know, people come from all over the world to come to these epic landscapes, and tourists being in the back of the shot was something that we didn't want. We wanted the film and the behind the scenes to kind of, the behind the scenes was different, but it didn't matter who we saw in that, but we wanted the film to just be the bride and groom on the road and at all these amazing places. Wherever we was thinking about a location, we had to think about that. So the plane crash was somewhere that I suggested that we should go. And Paul said no, they didn't think that we should go there because one, it was around an hour's hike. I mean, forgive me, it might be longer, it was 3 years ago we were talking about this. But also, you couldn't hide the tourists. If there was a load of punters there, we could not hide them. It would be too difficult. That was somewhere where it would have been a 2-hour round trip, so that would have took up to 3, 4, 5 hours to drive there, hike to the plane, come back. Another thing that we had to consider with the safety was we wanted to hire out, but because we wanted the shoot to be raw and rugged, we wanted to hire some Icelandic horses, and we'd got in touch with lots of different companies in Iceland, and a lot of them didn't open until later on in the year because of the weather. And we found Nupshistar, and I hope I'm saying that right. When we were scouting location, we were mostly looking on Google, and it was lovely to speak to Panic Nupshistar because they had local knowledge of some locations that weren't even, you know, we would never have found them. There was the Viking village, there was this lovely spot by the river where we took the horses. We went near a volcano, there was a waterfall that we hadn't seen. They were all quiet, there was no one around, and perfect spots. Black Sand Beach was somewhere that was epic because you've got the big waves coming in, the big, huge rock formations in the background, black sand. It's not black sand, it's black rock, so I don't know why it's Black Rock Beach really. Another thing to consider was like how much time we was going to have in Iceland in relation to what locations that we could go to. There was a couple of locations from Game of Thrones that we'd found as well, which was a complete other part of Iceland, which was north of Reykjavik, and we were going to go to the east of Reykjavik, on the south side of the island. So to go to all these places and then go to the Game of Thrones location, which was one of the locations I think from north of the wall, we were going to do the ceremony there, and it was just a little bit too far. Oh, there were all things that we had to consider when the location scouting, but also the amount of time that we were going to be in Iceland. We wasn't going to be there for long. Also, when we were planning the shoot, and this was like one of the really interesting things because you're looking at it in a way, and I've shot elopement since then, and it's important to make sure that the locations that you find, the locations that you pick, aren't too far away from each other because you want to maximise the amount of shoot time that you've got. You don't want to be driving all day. You want to be going from point A to point B as quickly as possible. And that's something that we had to consider with the locations. We had to, wherever we were going to stay, had to be a short amount of distance from location 1. Then we had to go location 2. As soon as we have a location 1 and 2 that are too far away and you're going back on yourself, you lose a lot of time and the morale of the team will go down, the bride and groom, the models will lose interest, and that is something that we really didn't want to do. So we could have either shot in 6 different locations on one day or 2, and that was the important thing, coming up with the shooting schedule to make sure that we maximised the amount of time. When we'd found like the main locations that we wanted to go to, we had to find somewhere in that area that was within an hour or 2 hours, and that's when we came up with the place where we stayed, which was absolutely stunning, by a river. At this point in the planning, when we was location scouting, we didn't know who we were going to bring in on the shoot because we were still seeing how feasible it was going to be. But if we were going to be taking a team out to Iceland, we had to look at the safety considerations, you know. Although they were going to be adults coming on a shoot, we were still technically going to be responsible for them and taking them to a place where it's outside of people's comfort zone. It made me feel excited to be able to share that experience. Most of the people that we brought along, or we was going to bring along, or thinking about bringing along, wasn't accustomed to shooting outdoors. You know, I wanted it to be an adventure for everyone. But if we were going to be taking people, and we did feel responsible for the safety. So that was another thing that we had to look at. On Black Sand Beach, there's big sneaker waves that come out of nowhere, and we had to make sure that we stayed far enough away from the water, which we didn't. We completely didn't check that. It's very easy to be blasé about these kind of things. Like, these are serious places. Iceland's a serious place, you know. There's a lot of things that happened during the shoot that were dangerous. You know, there was dangers. Before the shoot, I kind of took that for granted a little bit. And looking back, there's a lot of things that I would change about the way that I approached the safety and all that kind of stuff. If it was going to be rainy, if it was going to be by the sea, it was going to be slippy, it was going to be wet. So we had to think about that. We had to think about the fact it's volcanic, you know, like in 2000 and whatever, was it 2006 or 2007, that volcano went off and shut everything down all over Europe. I had a holiday to Tenerife booked around then and it got bailed. I've still never been to Tenerife. But all of these things were stuff that we had to consider. Over the course of this behind the scenes, you're going to see some of the things that we had to contend with, which were quite fun, really, looking back. Sometimes, like, when stuff goes wrong at the time, it's scary, and when you look back, it's funny.
If you would have died.
Not if he would have died. Obviously, we've touched on Paul a little bit. Paul, we had to look at style. So my style is fly on the wall, documentary style. I don't like to have the bride and groom looking at the camera. I don't like to fake anything. And Paul's style is similar, I think. Is it?
I don't think it is.
Paul's style is similar. Paul's very, very, very talented at getting those fly on the wall shots, but a lot of his shots are quite pose shots with the bride and groom. So that was something to consider about the amount of time that we were going to have on locations doing what Paul wanted to do and what I wanted to do. Building the team was quite a fun part of the job. We had to bring everybody in for a certain skill. Because we were funding this ourselves, or because it was coming out of the marketing budget, we had to make sure that each team member had something to give to the shoot. Now, for me, the first person that I wanted to get on board was Steve, to shoot the behind the scenes. The behind the scenes for me, again, reiterating that was the most important thing. This film now was the most important thing to come from it. And that's why it took longer than Avatar 2 to make. Steve got on well with Elks. I can't believe I've put Steve up first rather than Elks, my wife, because she should have been the first one there, not Steve. See.
Did Stefan tell you to do this?
He said, just film Elks or whole. No, he didn't really, I'm joking.
But Elks wanted to, like, obviously we needed the production. I am terrible with organising things, absolutely shocking at organising things. So I had to go to Elks with my vision of exactly what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, and she had to make it happen by costing it up, telling me what we could and couldn't do, and yes and no, and nada. And Elks was the one that helped organise the locations, the running order, and also quite a lot of other stuff that we'll go into later on. Let's get back to Steve. And Steve had worked with us for a while, for years, for YSD second shooting and first shooting for YSD, until he won a BAFTA for his writing for a TV show, and then he left us and he's been gone ever since. That was maybe like 4 years ago. But I wanted to bring him back because Steve really loves shooting with me. Steve loves working with me. Steve sees the worst in every situation, so I thought, who better to take to one of the most unpredictable countries in the world with one of the most unpredictable people? So I knew that Steve would be a great asset to the team. His negativity and hate of waterfalls was something that was going to be profound through the trip. Because we were going to have limited time at each location, I wanted to make sure that we maximised the time that we was there. So if I was off shooting one thing or setting up a time lapse, or if I was shooting the bride and groom, there might have been some like waterfalls or something, some seagulls, some seals, like just something else going on. So I needed someone else to come and shoot the B-roll. And that's where B-roll Pete comes in.
We need Pete to come!
This is the third take of filming for Iceland.
Without Pete Lawson, we don't have the men!
And I actually did a version where it actually explains B-roll Pete.
We're just innocent men.
In the most perfect possible way. Roll VT. Pete Lawson, PL. Multiple winner of multiple awards, international, legendary filmmaker. Called him up, mate, do you want to go to Iceland? Go to Iceland, have a few days filming, a few beers afterwards. Happy days.
We need Pete Lawson because there's not enough men!
There's no more men! That was the plan. So, got Pete on board. B-roll Pete. B-roll Pete. I've not actually put him in my phone as B-roll Pete, but I'm going to put him in my phone.
Way below his pay grade.
Wait. When I say B-roll Pete, that is possibly the worst thing that I could say to someone who is as talented as what Pete is. To have B-roll Pete on board. B-roll Pete. He's so much more than B-roll Pete. I mean, the B-roll, as B-roll goes, it wasn't bad, you know. As B-roll goes, it was all like Oscar-winning stuff, and a lot of it didn't even make it into the film, which is sad for Pete, really. But yeah, B-roll Pete was a great addition to the team.
I remember him saying, right, what do you want me to get? In fact, don't answer. B-roll. And then he turned to me and went, what the fuck is B-roll? What B-roll does he want?
But I'll be honest, I just wanted to make a film in Iceland. Like, I wasn't too fussed about anything else other than that. And Carleen was. Like I said, if you want to look after the looks of the models, and that was something that really interested her, and that was nice to bring her in on that. So I went to her with the vision, Iceland, the locations, and Elks put together the vision of what we wanted out of the models. Elks wanted to have a certain kind of look, which was red hair, pale skin, preferably tattoos, some colours that would really pop against the colours of the backgrounds of Iceland. When we came up with the initial idea, the first part was the planning to come up with, first of all, what models we wanted to use. So for weeks we were looking into, we put a shout out on Star Now for female and male models. There were quite a few applications that came in. It was fun looking through them to try and find who was best for the look that we wanted to go for. And for weeks we couldn't find anyone. Like, we had loads of amazing looks from loads of people that was getting in touch. We spent a while looking through Instagram to try and find out what colours popped, what we would kind of look, different hashtags that we used to try and find someone. And we just couldn't find the right person. Like, it took so long to find the right person. One day I was in the office and Elks came in. She's like, I found her. I was like, found who? I found the female model. Brilliant. Like, who is she? And she's like, well, first of all, before I say anything else, you've got to know she's an elf. What do you mean? She's an elf. An elf? Yeah, she's an elf. She brought it over. It was Jess Fernthorne. Beautiful look, beautiful, like perfect for what we wanted for the shoot. So we contacted Jess. She was well up for doing the shoot, and yeah, like so first we found Jess, the elf, and then we're on Star Now. We'd had a few applications of people that wanted to come and do the shoot. We found Jack, who's like an absolute legend. Beautiful man, beautiful beard, beautiful tattoos. I mean, all round, what a guy. Like, what a man. Like, I fancied him, you know? As well as all the girls. I mean, eye candy for the girls, but eye candy for the boys too. I mean, look at his face. We spoke to Jack on the phone, everything was fine, everything was good. The good thing was that Jess and Jack had got in touch with each other as well prior to the shoot to introduce each other, and they were really looking forward to working together. By that point, we had a photographer, a behind-the-scenes camera, we had B-roll Pete, B-roll Pete, we had a female model, and we had a male model. Next, we had to think about what they were going to wear. When Carleen was putting together the mood board for the style, the dresses that she wanted to go for was quite boho. And when we got to that point, we had a chat with Paul.
Could speak to like a dressmaker, like who makes dresses. You know, you're getting Whitfield and Ward to design a suit from scratch. Why don't you ask someone like Laura Frey who spoke?
Now, Laura Frey isn't the style that Carleen originally wanted to go for because she had an idea. But when she saw Laura's work and the dresses that Laura wanted to do, like, all of our minds were changed instantly because Laura's quite out there. It's bespoke, eclectic dresses. And she had a number of different dresses that she wanted to showcase.
This is the big ivory skirt, which is massive,
Yeah.
which will just show loads of impacts when it's like kind of on that beach and stuff, because it's just really full.
So when we asked her if she wanted to get on board, so excited to get involved, we arranged for Jess to come up to Manchester for a fit-in.
Once I've fitted you in with something, I'll know that, and then I can do the goals.
I've never been to a bridal fitting before. Is this like what every one of them's like? This is amazing.
Things we had to consider when looking for a dress was the fact that it was going to get trashed. Whatever dress that we was going to go with was going to get trashed. It did limit us a little bit when we were getting in touch with bridal shops to say, you know, we're going to take your absolutely beautiful dress, we're going to take it to Iceland, we're going to put it on a model, we're going to put the model on a horse, we're going to get her walking around Black Sand Beach, we're going to get her walking around all of this wet, boggy, Icelandic, volcanic ground.
We're not obviously going to expect her to kind of be walking up and hiking places in dresses. It's just going to be...
Laura's face kind of showed it all when we put some of the plans to her.
You've got to do it with all the greens and colours.
I don't know whether they're going to do a flower crown that's like that, because I've just sent them that picture. So then we've obviously got a sort of...
Keep pointing at things like that. Keep pointing
You're
at
putting
things.
under pressure now.
I know.
I feel there's no reason to point that.
Just keep pointing at it while you're talking.
So you can see
Stop.
No, the only thing I'm sort of conscious of with, because Lisa hasn't seen this yet, is if the makeup's quite heavy as well. Don't want you looking like Frida.
Yeah.
You know, where everything's like.
Who's Frida?
You know, you've not seen Frida, the woman who's she wears a big flower crown and she's got like the unibrow.
No.
You not seen her?
No.
Anyway, she looks amazing, but we don't want you looking.
So we're not having you don't have any unibrow, basically.
Laura wanted to showcase quite a few dresses, which we were more than happy to do. There's a couple of problems for that with me. First of all, having some continuity in the fact that we were going to be taking these models out to all these different locations in Iceland, but Jack wouldn't be getting changed, but Jess would.
Self-done, so
Is it?
I just get to stand it.
I feel like we're going full Hunger Games there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that same shape that we know works.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you were saying about the layering it up with the different pieces.
We had a chat with Laura when we went over for the fitting, and we decided that it would be best for Laura to come out on the shoot for a number of reasons. There was nobody that would just be able to look after the dresses. There was no point in having all of these amazing dresses that Laura was providing if they was all just going to be scrunched up after coming on a plane. We wanted Laura there to make sure that we had the best look with the dresses that we could possibly get. It was around this time that we spoke to Jess just about all of her experience of riding a horse.
What are your initial thoughts about getting on a horse in that?
Logistics.
They are used to it. They are used to it because they've had a lot of photo shoots before.
Actually going on a horse?
Yeah.
Are you joking?
We've got four.
For a horse.
You meant like going feeding like like at a zoo or something.
No, we've I don't think Paul wants you sat on them for photos. I think he wants them kind of around you.
Yeah.
But you know, just for fun stuff you might want.
Yeah, that's as long as they're not galloping at full speed for me.
No. Hopefully not, because I won't do my anxiety any good if I've got you up there and then like, yeah.
I want to go though. I'm having to go on
I'm definitely not.
For this fruit as well, get off.
I know, yeah, right. Don't get me.
What do you mean?
Don't get me. I'm of no importance here.
You are. You're the organiser.
Will it just autofocus? Do I have to press that button down to focus it?
Just you zoom in and out there.
What? Oh. Can't see though, it said sunny.
It's my world.
It's not focusing. It's not. It isn't focused. It's all out of focus. It just says spot focus.
Autofocus.
Right, is it exactly what I can see on the screen? Just come and look at it. I'd rather you show me, so just get out of the car and look. Right, well, we're going to have a domestic if you don't.
Well, it's funny that everything's all set up for you there. So
Please, will you just come and look? Just come and look. No, because then I'll know for next. It's not on autofocus, it's on M. It's on M.
Yeah, which is manual.
You said auto.
Yes, autofocus.
We needed something for Jack to wear. Now for me, there wasn't anybody else in the wedding industry that I would go to above Whitfield and Ward. Whitfield and Ward, Craig and Nicola are top dogs in the wedding industry. The suits that they do are second to none. When I had the idea of Iceland, I knew that I wanted to use Whitfield and Ward for the suit for Jack. And we went into Whitfield and Ward with our vision of what we wanted to do, and like everything else that happened, we had a vision, and then Craig and Nicola helped us to see a different angle of what Jack would look good in with the backgrounds popping, and that's when the suit was designed. Sat down with them, we went through all the different materials, we decided on some kind of material, I can't remember what it was, but it was ages ago, so...
I bought him a really nice Mont Blanc pen for Christmas and he doesn't use it.
It's not fat enough for my fingers.
As an actress sent to the vision.
It's alright, I don't mind staying an extra 2 hours.
They've all got a life to live. Let me just phone Nicola quickly.
No, don't do that now.
No, because it's good on camera, just one sec.
I'm not going to know that right now.
Yeah, they will. Come on.
Hi, this is Nicola. When you finish
Then we had to look at the hair and makeup. The hair and makeup was important because it was important, obviously, we need it. So we had a look. I'd worked with so many amazing hair and makeup artists over the years, but someone that could do both was really important. And Lisa Sims is someone that I'd worked with for a very long time over the years, and very, very talented. So I got in touch with Lisa, explained exactly what we wanted to do, and she said, I've never been anywhere on location like this before. I've never been to anywhere rugged. I've never really done hair and makeup outside. And I was like, perfect. Welcome to the team. And then Lisa got involved. And so just after that, Carleen went and met Lisa for a coffee. And Carleen went through exactly, what we wanted out of Jess and the dresses and the backgrounds. And they talked about all the colours, and everything was fine. The flights were booked. The accommodation was booked. The models were booked. Everyone was ready to go. Everyone was ready to go to Iceland. And then it happened.
Yes, mate. Yeah, we just, it's the last week before going to Iceland. There's obviously the shit needs sorting out. We've got a bit of a problem with Jess at the minute. That was at about 5 o'clock this morning. She said she's in hospital. So that's a bit of a fucking nightmare.
5 days before we were due to fly out to Iceland, we found out Jess was really poorly, and she wouldn't be able to make the shoot.
Keep me posted about Jess, and maybe... Do you want to put the feelers out there about getting a replacement model, perhaps? If she's got appendicitis and she's getting her appendix out, she's game over, mate. She won't be able to... That's done. She won't be able to fly over.
Now, since then, she's made a full recovery, so she's fine. So we can talk about it in a different way. But at the time, it was panic stations. Now, I'm pretty chilled, so I'm like, it's fine. We're going to Iceland. We'll be able to sort something out. Carleen, Laura, Lisa, panic stations.
It does create like a massive problem if she isn't available, because Laura's made the dress bespoke for her, so it's not going to fit anyone else, and Laura's sort of panicking a little bit now because it's a few days before the shoot. She's put a lot of time and effort into it, and obviously we don't know any information about what Jess is doing and that, so yeah, it's shit's creek at the minute.
Tell me her measurements. What size is she? Size 8? I'll start looking to it now, mate. Fuck. Why has this happened, honestly? That's proper annoying, though.
We had various conversations about putting Jess onto a horse. When we were speaking to Pan, we said about putting, the models on a horse, and they asked what experience that they had. Obviously, neither of them had much experience of riding a horse, not Jess or Jack.
Are you used to horses, right?
No, I've done it ages ago.
The way you said it, I was like, oh, she's a pro, like, it's fine.
Putting a bareback on a horse was obviously dangerous, and Nupsy Star was really pushing towards having a helmet on, which obviously takes away from the aesthetics of being in Iceland. Would we put her on the horse knowing that's potentially dangerous, or would we have her just leading the horse going forward? And that's something that we were going to decide when we got to Iceland. First time the whole team had to really come together with the common goal of fixing this problem. This was the first real problem that we'd had. We had quite a lot of options to go through, from Carleen panicking that we weren't going to go, that was pointless, the whole thing was a waste of time, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, it's fine, don't worry about it. We've got 5 days before we go. She was like, it's 4 days because we're flying on that day. I was like, fine, we've got 4 days, we'll sort it out. We had a number of different female models that were well up for coming over. There was one that really stood out, and that was Olivia. Now, Olivia had vast experience of riding horses. When I spoke to her on the phone, she was well up for riding the horse. Laura had sized all of the dresses up to fit Jess. Now, obviously with it being 5 days before we were due to fly out to Iceland, 4 full days, Olivia was quite a lot taller, and she had a different skin tone, different hair colour. So obviously for me, I'm a filmmaker and Paulie's a photographer, so the difference for us was minimal. You know, it was just a case of, right, well, we've lost one model and we'll bring another one in. But that wasn't the same for everyone. Laura had already spent a very long time working on the dresses and the accessories and sizing them for Jess from the fitting. And with 4 days to go before we were due to fly out to Iceland, that was a hell of a lot of work for Laura to do. And up until, I think, midnight the night before, she was still resizing. We even got to Iceland and she was still resizing them. For Laura, it was a hell of a lot of work. But also, not just for Laura, for also Lisa as well, because these are, considerations that as a videographer I would never, ever have known. Lisa had to change the palette of the makeup that she was bringing out, but also she had to contend with, Olivia had different hair than what Jess had. She had extensions, so there was so much that went into the change that I didn't necessarily have to get involved with, but I appreciate that the team went out of the way to go above and beyond to make the shoot still happen. And that's something I'd say about leading the team or building the team. This is things that I wouldn't necessarily see on a wedding day, but how much more I appreciate the work that goes into not just the shoot that we did in Iceland, but that all of these people do, you know, to make a wedding happen. For me, it was humbling for me, for these people who I'd had a vision and I'd asked them to get involved. The night before, just contacting everyone, the excitement that everyone had for flying out to Iceland and making something, you know. To work on this vision that I'd had, that had come from a crazy idea during lockdown, to then suddenly the next day we were flying out to Iceland and the excitement was building.
The other bits that we need to talk about is just so we're on the same page with everything when we're over there, because I don't want to be talking about like any admin stuff that went in front of other people. I'd rather just have that boxed off between me and you. Like, I'd rather one of us just get the shopping, like we can get all the shopping and all the stuff, and then we just split it afterwards. I think that just keeps it, that just makes it simple, nice and easy, split straight down the middle. But that's the kind of stuff like that I don't want to talk about in front of the team when everyone's over there. So all being well, we should be going out, and I'll keep you updated with whatever we hear back from Jess. Fucking nightmare, but yeah, alright, catch you in a bit, bye.
I've got a Monzo card, mate, and I'll put like 500 quid or a grand or whatever on the Monzo card, and that can just be like, I'll just give you the pin for that, and we can just use that as that's the card we use.
When everybody came together at the airport, that was a great feeling, because all of the planning, the preparation, the ideas, the concepts, just everything that went into planning it had finally come together, and we were all at the airport and we were all ready to fly out to Iceland to go and make something epic. So that's the end of part 1. Part 2, we're going to cover quite a lot of different stuff that went into the actual on-location shoots. Starting out from flying over to Iceland, taking the kit. What kit did we choose? Getting through the airport, how much fun that is. What was it like living in a house with a load of people that had not met before that trip? The problems that we faced with the horses, with the weather, managing the team, keeping everyone happy and getting the most out of people when it didn't always go to plan. How did we deal with the timings and the changes to the schedule? All the disasters and mini disasters that happened throughout the trip, and also the budget. What did Iceland cost? What did we get out of it? And finally, how we put the edit together. Don't know when this is going to be out because this one took 3 years, almost. So don't hold your breath, but coming soon. Ish. Part 2 of our Icelandic behind the scenes.